Welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, a sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, live at the Greenbrier. Nathan Zagura, the voice of your Browns, Jim Donovan, and we are joined now by a Big L luminary, the general manager of your Cleveland Browns, Andrew Barry. AB, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Nathan, Jim, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have you back at the Greenbrier this year. How's it been going so far?
It's besides the rain today, it's been going really well. We love it here. It's secluded, allows us to focus on us. The facilities are great. The staff's fantastic. So we're excited to be back here for a second year.
So you saw it work coming here last year, and easy decision then to come back?
Yeah, incredibly easy decision to come back, Jim. We just felt like to be away from the distractions, to allow the team to come together both personally and professionally. It was the right way to start camp, set the tone, so to speak, before we go back to Berea.
Yeah. All right, we're going to talk about this team in a second, but I've been told, on the day off that you lead a hike that is not for the faint of heart. And I've heard that 2 years ago, some people almost didn't survive this hike and maybe opted out this year. Tell us about the yearly AB hike.
So it was actually recommended by one of our local beat writers, Terry Pluto. He had done the path, and he was basically like, hey, just as a heads up, like the last, maybe 3/4 of a mile, it's super steep and it's really hard. And so we went as a group last year, and we started off. It's like, oh, this isn't so bad. Oh, Terry just, he just like built this up, and then we got to the ascent, and it was pretty brutal. Now the lookout point was worth it.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing: we did it again this year, so it was about we hiked 2.5 miles last year.
Okay. And
we were doing the, I'll say, quote unquote same hike this year. Well, we made a comedy of errors and got lost multiple times. The 2.5 mile hike turned into 9.25 miles, and it was rough. It was rough. I'm not gonna lie. It was rough.
Next year you might be alone.
Yeah. No. So I'm gonna blame our personnel operations director, Megan Rock. And say that she can no longer be navigator this year, or next year. So we'll get it right. Third time's a charm.
You need that guy, Bear Grylls.
That's right.
That's the guy. Huh? You can do this. You can get it, Andrew.
That's exactly right.
Well, these guys got good shape. 9 miles. What a bonus workout.
Yeah, my feet and knees and ankles, I'm like all sore. Like coming up these stairs was just like a colossal
It was a chore.
Challenge. Yeah.
Did they send people out after you?
So funny thing is, we actually got lost at the lookout point the first year, and then one of our ops interns, Jacqueline, she had to take the van to get us back down to the entry point. So don't follow us with the hike.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
But follow this football team on the field, man. I'll tell you what, we're just easing into things. Obviously, the first day in pads today, and no team periods, anything like that. But you can just see the talent that is out there, and obviously some more guys you want to get back on the field. But how are you feeling about just the state of the roster right now?
I feel like this, we're encouraged with the state of the roster. We like the mix of talent, youth, experience. Believe that everybody on our team can either has a role or will fight for a role. So we're very optimistic. We want to make sure we're healthy. That's probably the big thing. And we're also humble enough to realize that it's a competitive league, and you never know how things will surprise you in both directions going into it. So we're cautiously optimistic. We feel like we have a lot of talent in the mix, but we still have a long way to go and a lot of work to do before we get to where we need to be.
David Njoku was speaking with the media today, and he goes, "I'm in my 8th year," and I go, "Wow,
yeah.
8 years." Yeah. Is it an older roster right now, do you think? Because I look at them and, Denzel, he's a kid,
Yeah, I think, Jim, we have a nice mix of youth and experience.
Right.
I think for the longest time, particularly call it 6-7 years ago, we were always like the youngest team in the league.
Yes.
Right?
By a lot.
Right. By a lot. Like we were like historically young, and now I think we're now the way we think about it is like basically snap adjusted age. So weight age by how many snaps the players actually take. We're really more middle of the pack, which is kind of where you want to be in your in your competitive window. So we think it's the right mix as we sit here today.
One of those veterans, and you made Jim very happy by resolving whatever the situation was with Amari Cooper. Talk to us about kind of that decision and what that sets up, not only for this year, maybe some flexibility for the football team, but also for the future.
I was up all night, pacing back and forth.
We love Amari. We love Amari, and we know our fans love Amari. he's an excellent player. He's an excellent human being. He's a big piece of our locker room, and so we were able to get that resolved. And I think Amari was good at communicating throughout the whole time. I know he talked a little bit about his decision to sit out at mini camp, and we knew he wasn't going to sit out at training camp, but we understood his position in terms of not taking on injury risk, something fluke happen. But we were happy to get it to a good place. As we enter camp and enter the season, he's a big part of what we do, and we have a lot of love and respect and appreciation for him.
Now you don't have this going on, and Amari is here, and it's all done. But there are teams that have this new thing of guys coming in, but they don't perform because they're waiting on a deal. It's nice that we don't have that, but that's troublesome, isn't it?
Yeah, I think each organization handles it differently. I mean, I think you can look at the two teams that went to the Super Bowl last year. Kansas City dealt with that with their longest tenured, or one of their longest tenured players in Chris Jones.
Yeah.
He actually didn't play week 1. Didn't really impact their culture or their season. San Francisco, they dealt with that with with Nick Bosa and Debo, and they're having a couple situations this year. Didn't really impact their culture or their season. So it's an unfortunate part of the business. I think for us a big way that we've prevented that is being proactive with our guys. And then the other thing is, like, our guys, generally know we have a long-standing policy that, for hold-ins or holdouts, we don't negotiate. So we're just being consistent, but also more importantly, being proactive with our guys. That's the important part.
Yeah, it's good you got that done. There's really now it's just when will some of the guys coming off injury be back? That's kind of the biggest question right now for this team. And as you kind of look at the roster with some of those guys, when are you kind of hopeful for maybe some of these tackles, especially, let's say, on the offensive line, so we can kind of see what this line's going to look like?
Yeah, I won't go into specifics with the timeline other than to say the guys, they're progressing appropriately for their respective injuries. We want them back on the field as soon as possible, no different than our fans, and no different than you do, Nathan, and you do, Jim. But we're gonna deal with it day by day and week by week and make sure that they're ready to go so that when they do get on the field, they don't have to come back off.
Do you think when we watch the offense, we're going to go, when it's finally out there, we're going to go, wow, really different?
Yeah.
Or is it,
it's
what it was?
It's a good question, Jim. I think when we watch the offense, it will be a scheme that maximizes the skill sets of our players. And that can look a number of different ways, depending on the opponent or depending on the personnel grouping that we have out here. But I think it'll be a nice blend of different things. And but part of it is, part of training camp in the early part of the season is figuring out, okay, well, what are we actually good at? Just because you do have a lot of things in doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to do all of it if you're if you're not good at it. And I don't want our fans to lose sight of the fact that there are a number of things that we've done in the past that were really good that are going to stay staples of the offense. So I'm excited about seeing it all come together, but we're still in the lab, so to speak, tinkering and figuring out how everything's going to look.
I know that you enjoy probably some of the process. So you bring in Ken Dorsey, and we know that there's going to be a percentage, and Kevin said he wouldn't put a number on it, but that will be different. And so that maybe, we've heard more choice routes, option routes. So maybe some different skill sets than perhaps what we were looking for before. So was that kind of fun for you to sit down with Coach Stefanski, Coach Dorsey, and say, okay, give me the vision. What are the traits you're looking for? What are the things that you really want to have in the skill position player so that we can maximize that?
Yeah, I think any healthy relationship or healthy dynamic between a coaching staff and a front office, there is that communication in terms of, okay, here's the playing philosophy and the specific roles that we need to maximize the playing philosophy, and then ultimately, marrying that with personnel. So that's a yearly discussion for us. Obviously, when you change a coordinator, it's more significant. It was fun to put together the pieces with that group this year.
It was a great defense last year. Wow. A lot of wow moments. What is their next step?
Yeah, I think the next step, and Jim's been very proactive, is really making sure that we have a number of counter punches, because as good as we were last year, one, every year is different, and two, teams now have a full year of what we do,
tape.
and it would be silly of us to think that we're going to be there aren't going to be some adjustments in terms of how we play. So Jim and the defensive staff, they've been very mindful of that. We're still going to be at our core attack defense that plays a lot of one high coverage and press man, but making sure that we have the things that play off of that give us enough diversity for some of the new ways that offenses may try and exploit us.
When you think about your first time with the Browns, and I imagine it was difficult maybe to get people to want to come beat Cleveland Browns, then you think about the fact this year Zadarius wanted to come back, Shelby wanted to come back, Mo Hurst wanted to come back, Jordan Hicks wanted to join the fold, Rodney McLeod had to come back.
Mm-hmm.
That guys want to be Cleveland Browns. When you kind of think of what that means from a culture perspective, how kind of proud are you of that development?
Yeah, I mean, I think players, coaches, staff, they want to be able to win, and they want to feel like they're treated well. And I think it really just kind of boils down to that, and especially those vets who we have such a high amount of respect, or high degree of respect for, to be able to bring them back and for them to want to come back. It's just something that's very important to us.
I was telling the birthday guy over there about this, but Dustin Hopkins, we did an interview with him, and it may as well have been a PSA for the Browns, and he spoke a lot about what you were talking about, that the football is great, but the values, being able to spend time with your family, things like that are clearly important to this organization and aren't maybe in some others, is a pretty special thing. And I think you guys have done a great job. Jordan Hicks said already, this is completely different than anything I've ever experienced in a very positive way.
It's always great for the guys who have been other places to be able to say that, to give the PSA, so to speak, because it certainly helps with recruiting.
Yeah, it's good. It's good advertising.
And but also, just as importantly, it helps our younger players who have only come up in Cleveland to hear that from people. Appreciate what's here. So that's always really good to hear, and we're going to continue to strive and be better, be top of class in those areas, so we can get the best talent possible.
I mean, right at the end of it, he said, "I'm Dustin Hopkins, and I approved it. I approve this ad." Football 101. I'm really interested. Your staff right now, scouts, personnel people. What are they doing right now?
Yeah, so it depends on what area that you're in. So I'll break it down simply just to the scouting.
I think
staff.
a lot of people would be interested.
Yeah.
In that.
So I'll touch on our college scouting staff. They're already out on the road. They're going out to different training camps for colleges in their areas, talking with coaches, seeing prospects, because all summer they had been setting our initial draft board. They had gone in there, done the rising seniors, draft eligible juniors, so they could budget their time in the fall. So that's where they are. Our pro scouting staff, they're doing a combination of internal scouting with our team as we think about cutting the roster in the next couple weeks, and really preparing for preseason scouting, which is scouting all 31 other teams. So we have the ability to acquire players that could help us. So that's what led to the Pierre Strong trade last year. It led to claiming
I like him, by the
Halasi,
way.
And it led to us trading for Dustin Hopkins. That process led to those three transactions. Our contract management team, we usually take this time to think about, okay, how are we going to handle things from here to the trade deadline if different opportunities come up, if we're dealing with different extensions, like August is a big time for that. And then maybe some early initial planning around 2025 and 2025 and beyond.
All right, we'll get you out of here on this one, and appreciate the time as always. So training camp underway, obviously exciting preseason games coming. What are you just kind of hoping to see? Maybe even top level, not getting into the weeds with positions or battles or anything like that, but what are you just kind of hoping to see from this football team as you ramp up with all eyes on September 8th against the Dallas Cowboys and beyond?
Number one is health, which I think every general manager will say that. We
agree.
Kevin always jokes with me because I'm like, if you ask me, I would say we never practice because I just want to put everybody in bubble wrap so that they're healthy for the
bubble wrap.
the season.
I'm with you.
Number two, come together as a group that likes being around one another. Why this Greenbrier time is really important, because that's the stuff that helps when you go through the moments of adversity. And then number three, it's maximizing our potential within the respective systems that we have on all three sides of the ball, and that's going to come with practices and reps. Because I think if we hit those three aiming points, we'll look up and be happy where we are on September 8th and December 8th and February 8th.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Really focusing on the daily process, and then we think the outcomes we'll be pleased with.
Well, thanks for the time, and best of luck achieving those 3 things and then getting into this season and letting this team rip.
Appreciate you guys.
All right, General Manager Andrew Barry with us. We'll be back with more Cleveland Browns Daily live from the Greenbrier on 850 ESPN Cleveland.